This video is sponsored by our friends at Flexera. You might remember Flexera from their State of the Cloud report that I basically make fun of every year. It's become a tradition, much like Easter here at this house. And they do point out some things that are useful and relevant to, well, basically shoring up my own arguments. 59% of people say that migrating more workloads to cloud is a top initiative. The challenges of migration are things like understanding app dependencies, assessing tech flexibility, assessing the costs. No, not controlling them, assessing them, even understanding how they work. And helping with those things is fueling some of their fastest growth. Check them out. Partners like them, customers like them. Learn more yourself with their state of reports for 2022 at flexera.com/reinvent2021. That's www.flexera.com/reinvent2021. And my thanks to them for sponsoring this ridiculous video I'm about to inflict on you. Celebrating 10 years of reInvent. I don't know if I'd call it celebrating, Bob. So a lot of companies have super large booths here at reInvent, but the one that puts all the rest of them to shame is the enormous AWS booth behind me. Now, most of these customer booths are incredibly expensive, but the AWS booth is unique in that the customers paid for the rest of it. They're kind of the apex predator here. They're looking around from their top deck, trying to figure out who among this expo hall are the best companies that they can acquire/devour. Here behind me, we have the Slack booth. Slack, it's where work happens, and also Salesforce acquisitions. And over here behind me, we have the Launch Darkly booth. This is where I'll be kicking off the nature walk today at 1 o'clock. They also have a whole bunch of last week in AWS swag if you're into that. If you're not into it, I can't say that I blame you. I have way too much of it myself. You're going to notice that there are an awful lot of different competitors here at reInvent. For example, behind me, we have the AWS Compute team. And right next to it, in an unfortunate sense of product placement, we have the AWS Containers team too. There's no love lost between those two orgs. Over here behind me, we have the AWS Village Directory. It takes a village to raise a child. One of these days, we'll find a child to raise this village. Over here behind me, we have the AWS Simple Beer Service. Everything except the word AWS is a lie. There's a person serving them, which is the service. The beer is actually water/something unmentionable. And of course, there is nothing whatsoever simple about anything AWS is likely to build. At reInvent, you can tell a lot about how successful a company is by how big their booth is year over year. In previous years, Chaos Search had a pretty tiny booth. Now it is fairly enormous. Good for them. Behind me over here, we see the standing room only Datadog Kiosk booth. Here we have what is no doubt the saddest booth at reInvent, the Amazon retail store Kiosk across the mall. They have no earthly idea why so many of their colleagues are in town and probably have a dramatically inappropriate view of how many Amazon employees actually work here. For some reason, they're not invited to the city. You'll note that there's no actual Amazon branding on the kiosk other than the trademark smirk. The word Amazon is almost entirely absent. Well, we're once again doing keynotes in the Venetian. Earlier today, Adam wound up announcing a whole raft of new services with dumb names. Now, this wasn't an Andy Jassy level torrent for 2 hours. There were only about 10 new things that were announced. The rest of it was kind of a meandering history lesson talking about ancient things, such as mainframes, the origin of EC2, and a Gartner Magic Quadrant featuring IBM Cloud. Adam is having a very different approach to keynotes than Andy did. He's still finding his own style, which is fair. It's a new job, and it's a big one. It's going to take a little time for him to wind up figuring out how he's going to put his stamp on this place. Right now, it feels a lot like the entire message was really centered around business as usual. I'm not going to be making drastic changes, which is kind of what you want to hear from the cloud provider that basically runs the world. Here we have the IBM Cloud Booth, targeting its dual constituencies of both companies that don't know any better and raccoons. As you might expect, there's not a whole lot of interesting announcements coming out of them, as this is primarily an AWS conference.